My novel is called Out of It, and the title has three meanings. One of them is out of the physical place where it's set, which is mainly in Gaza. And secondly, it's about the main character trying to get out of consciousness, so he's a bit drugged out some of the time. And the third meaning of it is out of political consciousness or political engagement, because I have characters who are in a situation which is highly politicized because it's in a state of, it's under attack, it's under occupation, it's under siege. So the people living in Gaza, in the imaginary Gaza that I've created, are trying to find a way. One of them is trying to find a way to alter the situation, and the other one is actually trying to find a way out of it. So, and I show through the novel how it's really impossible in the circumstances to do either to engage effectively or to really take the cause out of the person. So the novel is also set in three places. It's set in Gaza, in London, and in the Gulf. And part of the reasoning for that is because we as Palestinians are spread out. We're mainly refugee community. We've got a big diaspora in the West as well. And I took very privileged characters, a particular class, a sort of insider-outsider class of people who are called returnees, because they came back to Palestine with the peace agreements in the 90s. And so these were people who sort of had grown up almost like diplomats' kids. You know, they'd gone from, they'd moved around from Paris to London to Scandinavia within this sort of special, protected, quite affluent way, going to Swiss finishing schools, but because their parents were in the PLO, which was the former leadership, they were seen at the same time as being terrorists. So it's this kind of, they were often having to escape very quickly. There was this constant sense that they were the unwanted, the outsider, the ones who were potentially going to be under attack. So these characters return to Gaza, which is a place that's meant to be the homeland, that they're repatriating themselves to, but actually they don't really know it at all. So I wanted to have characters like that, partly because of this, I like the tension of insider-outsider, particularly to describe a place which people don't know, possibly, to see it in a fresh light, and to show this, the characters which are created, which are feeling this sort of tension of not belonging, of feeling things a lot more intensely and a lot more in a way that is explaining events and circumstances to themselves at the same time as to the reader. I have never lived in Gaza, and I have, my parents were not in the PLO. I've never belonged to a political party. My father is Palestinian. I grew up between Kuwait, Saudi, England. I was born in Scotland. My mother's English. So I've that sense of not quite belonging but being connected to a cause is very much in my life. So so the novel is totally fictional. This is not about my life story. There's no memoir in here. And it's more maybe based partly on some of the friends and the people that I had when I was more politically involved, people who I knew during, well, friends who I, you know, my friends now. So it's just people I knew and the way that they dealt with the circumstances that they were in. I think it was more in terms of how I formulated it, less to do with trying to recreate a world I knew very well, but to recreate a feeling or a sense, this issue of connection to a cause, which I think is the one thing that connects Palestinians wherever they are, whether they're in Arizona or Kuwait or Gaza or Syria. It's this idea of a wrong that was done to them that has not been resolved, a sort of an unresolved trauma or injustice. So, and how they personally respond to it. How much of their life do they give to trying to change it, if at all? Or are they trying to just edge away from it? And if so, do they do that successfully? So I was quite interested in characters who can't find a way of expressing emotions because of the political situation that they live in, because the politics is meant to dominate everything. And I just thought the tension interested me in terms of how people communicate emotion and feeling. The main family are called the Mujahid family, and they're split between Gaza and the Gulf. The two main characters are twins in their late 20s, a boy and a girl, Iman and Rashid, and they have an older brother called Sabri who's in a wheelchair. Their mother lives with them in Gaza, but their father has gone to the Gulf where he has a nice car, nice flat, and a new girlfriend, and we don't know why he's left. The boy and the girl who are central, the girl is really trying to find a way to engage in the situation and to do something, to make a difference. The boy just wants to get out of it, and the family that they come from, the mother, the older brother, are heavily engaged in what is happening, and they sort of have the moral authority in the household, and this closes in on Rashid, who probably is the more central character of the two. So the novel follows them in their journey from Gaza to the Gulf for one of them, and one to London and back, and it has love stories entwined and personal quests for a resolution of this issue of engagement. Very loosely. I mean, people read novels and they sometimes say, oh, well, that character is so-and-so, you know, he's Aboud, for example. And then you say, I don't even know who this guy is you were talking about. I mean, they're totally fictional characters, but I feel quite gratified that people think that they can recognize them. So it means that they work, that they resonate. Well, I think there is, but a lot of people feel... I think people, when you're dealing with a political subject matter, they want a message to come out of it. And I studiously wanted to avoid an obvious message. I think the novel can be very political in its impact, and it can make you think about a new political circumstance, but I don't think it should be trying to replace the role of propaganda. That's a different vehicle altogether. So I felt my characters, each in their own way, resolve things internally, and there's a message in that, but not guidance for everybody. It was just a personal journeys that took them to a place which was different to where they were in the beginning. Yes, I mean, I think definitely a journey. I think the sense of being fragmented over many countries, of being spread out, of your people very close to you being in lots of different countries, of constantly being on planes, of traveling, of trying to sort of move between different ways of living, and having to be so culturally adaptable. This is something that a lot of the Palestinians I know, I mean, it is have to deal with. You know, it's just a part of a way of life, an unsettled way of life. I mean, I'm lucky I have a British passport, but a lot of people, it's a question of, you know, following the next visa, because there's an underlying state of statelessness. Right. Well, I think I do actually, more than anything, feel very cosmopolitan. I think how Palestinian I feel depends on where I am, who I'm with, what's going on politically. I don't know, I find it very difficult, these questions of identity, because I don't really think that we often comprehend our emotions or our inner being in terms of countries or territories. It's only when that connection causes a pain or a hurt or a sense of strong connection for some reason that becomes a dominant part of who you are. And for me, I feel quite chameleon-like in terms of, no, actually, I feel more like an inverse chameleon. I feel more Arab in England and more English in the Arab world. You know, it's where you aren't that you feel the difference. But with the Palestinian issue, it's something that has been a very strong part of the emotional life of my family because of how it affected my father. So it's something I connect to strongly, but I'm distanced from in terms of who I am, what I write in, what background I have, my education, other parts of my life. It can distance me. Um, the book started with an image. I started writing in 2003 when the Iraq War was going on, and it just started with the image of a boy leaping on a roof, and there's a fighter jet above him, and he's defiant, but he's angry, he's a bit stoned. There was just a sense of anger, frustration, restlessness in a situation of conflict. And I tried at first to write it as a short story to see if I could make the place neutral, get rid of any Arab names, get rid of any sense of place, to absolve people from stereotyping or negative associations, etc. And I wrote it as a very experimental short story, and to be honest, it didn't really work, I don't think. Some people got quite excited about it, but there was something in it that made me feel this was a novel I wanted to write, because I'd written short stories beforehand. But when I tried to extend it, I decided I needed to bring it down to earth. I needed to have it set in one location. So I decided on Gaza, just because Gaza is really the extremity of the Palestinian situation. And so that's where I decided to base it. I think people are very keen to, if you're writing in English but your name isn't English, or the place where your book isn't set isn't particularly British, that is a lesser point. They're very keen to look at where you come from and other writers from that region who you have similarities with. I think it's sometimes more interesting to look at how language is used, or subjects are used, or issues are dealt with, are handled, rather than sort of thinking that everybody from a certain diverse region should be, writing about the same things, following the same styles, because we are all becoming quite cosmopolitan, particularly these writers who write in English are being English or French or Hebrew or whatever, are all being influenced by writers from the outside as much as they are from their own writers. So I think that maybe in terms of links with that, in terms of trying to explain countries which are overwhelmed by dehumanizing stereotypes, I think there's a similarity there in terms of just trying to break it up, trying to humanize it, trying to bring in characters whose worlds you can inhabit. Yeah, there's a connection there, but it's quite a broad one.